Welcome to the JMJ Commercial Realty Podcast. Dive into market insights, winning strategies, and the stories shaping today's commercial real estate landscape. Let's get started.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the JMJ Commercial Realty Podcast. I am Adam Schertzer, an advisor at JMJ Commercial Realty, and I'm joined as always with the owner and broker, with Josh Cedia. How you doing, Josh?
Good morning, Adam. I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, good. And we have a special guest today,
You too.
joining us from Keller Williams. We have Ali Ludwig. How you doing, Ali?
Good morning. I'm doing great.
Great. And so this is a commercial realty podcast, and Ali is a residential broker. We decided to bring her on to hear about the residential market, some similarities, differences, things like that, and learn about her 20 plus years in real estate. So thanks for joining us, Ali.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So if you want to just let everyone know, how did you get started in this job?
Well, it's funny. I was going to college and I had four children I had twins three under the age of four. And I was going to college for my master's degree in criminal justice and psychology. And in the meantime, I was working with my husband as the office manager for his survey company, land surveying and engineering at the time, and part-time with the kids. So the kids had their own office and everything. And my first job offer with a master's degree was less than I was making part-time working for the family, where I didn't have to worry about if the kids were sick or, taking time off, family vacations, health insurance, none of that. And I had said all along that somebody in the family should go into real estate because we were getting our number one client at the time were people who had just bought real estate, didn't know where their lot corners were, said my real estate agent told me that this is where they were, and were wrong. So I had said, we need to get a family member into real estate. This is ridiculous. I keep giving out wrong information. We can do better than that. And when I got that first job offer, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to give it a shot. And I haven't looked back. That was 22 years ago.
Awesome. So your husband was definitely a big influence then in how you got started here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Have you guys worked together a lot on when there's people come up and ask you about that with surveys or plots and
So I never tell them exact lot corners
yeah.
because it's outside of the scope of my hat, right? So I always visualize myself as having a hat on my head of what my job is. And determining boundary lines is outside of my work hat, right? Same as any kind of attorney language that's outside of my work hat. So I call him in often. I mean, if they want a true survey, they would hire him or someone like him to get a true boundary survey done. We don't do that during the home buying process. But if we run into issues, which we sometimes do with open conditions or easements or driveways on property, that kind of thing, your neighbor's driveway on your property line, then I call him in for like emergency surgery is what I call it. So yeah, he comes in often, and he's been a big help over the years, or just even reading plans, helping my clients understand what they're looking at. I
Hmm.
call him in for those things all the time.
Yeah, that's definitely important. I'm curious, passing it back to you, Josh. Have you ever had issues with deals or things or people questioning where the boundaries are for commercial
Yeah,
property and things like that?
sure. Yeah, it's come up in different times. And, to your point, Allie, about wearing hats, like I like to kind of think of myself as the quarterback for these deals or different types of things. And there are specialties, whether it's an attorney, whether it's an inspector, structural, to get the right people in to be able to take a look at it further.
Yeah.
Definitely
Well,
great
if you,
stuff.
my husband does all of that stuff, and my son, they still have the family business. So if you ever need help, give him a call.
Great.
Yeah, definitely will. And maybe I'll see if he wants to be a guest on a future episode and we can talk all more about surveying and
Sure.
landlines and all that stuff. I think that would be pretty interesting. Um, so with residential versus commercial, kind of want to get into that aspect of it. Um, off the top of my head, I think emotional versus analytical. Just curious, like what your thoughts are, Ali, as far as, you know, have you done any commercial deals in the past? Working with.
I have done commercial deals. They're not my favorite for that very reason. So that's why I specialize in residential. Um, I would say that it is probably for most people one of the biggest financial purchases that they make in their lifetime, right?
Mhm.
And you guys probably get the other percentage of the people who not only just buy their home, but they buy what they're going to do for some additional financial gain. But I tend to work with people who where it is their biggest financial purchase. Um, and it's funny because I always say that they aren't purchasing by looking at the numbers and figuring it out. It's a very emotional purchase. And so you have to help them go through the emotional process while they're doing one of the biggest it's not like buying a car, right? It really is one of the biggest purchases they're going to make, and it's all emotional based.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like you're probably, acting as their therapist during this whole process as well.
A psychology degree definitely helps.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I have a psychology degree as well, and I've definitely found it helpful and just generally talking to people, and figuring out, how they want to go with certain things with deals.
Well,
So,
if you, I mean, I think about it like your home is really everything to us, right? I mean, if you picture yourself in your home, it's the place where hopefully you're feeling the safest. It's where you have your whatever your family looks like. It's your family. You're gonna raise your children or your dog or help your parents get older. People have watched their loved ones die in their homes. It's like it's really the heart of all of us.
mhm.
And so when you look at it that way, it's where you're going to have your biggest struggles and your hopefully your biggest loves. And so when they're going through that process, whether it's cleaning out their house or they're looking at it as a place to buy, those are all the things that they're running through their head is how it's going to fit into that scenario.
Yeah, definitely. No, that makes sense. And so I guess on the other side, going back to you, Josh, here about, have you found any one that you've worked with, seller, buyer, where it had things have gotten emotional, or have you found that it mostly stays more of analytical if the numbers work, if the location works, you know?
Mhm. I'd say in general, it's more analytical, but I certainly have had some situations and a recent one that comes to mind where um, there was some emotion in there. Sometimes, like for example, you may have commercial piece of property where someone is running their business there. Maybe they've run their business there for years and looking to do something else. So it some their emotions can definitely be a big factor in some situations. But I think as an investor, if you're a developer, if you're looking at it, strictly by numbers or by location or by size, a lot of people generally tend to use, the analytical approach in
Mhm.
commercial.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends, like, comparing it to the residential part of like you're going to be living there and, maybe raising a family or having your life in this spot. Same thing as like if you're, in a location, you're having your business there. You're probably spending more time, at work than you are at home anyway. So if you've been in this place for 20 plus years, it might be kind of hard to part with that, or even put like a valuation of a number, on what you think it's worth compared to what the market might think it's worth.
Right. And you may have a different part, assessment for the what the business is worth versus the real estate itself, you know.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Now,
Yeah, and oh, go ahead.
oh, sorry, no, I was gonna pivot to timelines here. You know, I know one thing that sometimes I'm a little jealous of in commercial compared to residential is the timelines of properties to close. I find with commercial, whether it be, needing certain permits or regulate things like that, and especially if it's a development deal, it could take years compared to, seeing going in and purchasing a house that might close quickly. So I'm curious, Allie, like, is that pretty much the case, or have you had ones that, have dragged out for months and months on end for certain reasons?
Oh, I think it's the market we're in. if you have a seller's market, then things are going under agreement very quickly. And
Mhm.
we've had a pretty strong seller's market for a long time now. So, if you price it properly, it goes under agreement in 2 weeks, then the normal timeline, unless you have extenuating circumstances, is, usually 30 to 60 days to close. Um, you can see that extend if we're trying to find a home for somebody, like the seller needs to find suitable housing. You might give them an additional 60 days to 60 days. But in a buyer's market, you can see properties being on the market for 6 months to a year. We've had properties over a year just on the market during the Great Recession, for example. Um, or if they're not priced properly. And then it would be short sales or another one. We've had short sales where you had to go through the bank and the bank doesn't give you a decision for over a year. And so the buyer's hanging out there for a long time waiting for a decision on a short sale. Those are almost non-existent at this time, not completely, but almost in our area in the North Massachusetts.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so it depends. But in a seller's market or a more level seller's market, they're going quick. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. And as you've been in this for 20 years or so, I'm guessing you've seen a lot of ups and downs with different types of markets. Does it
Yeah.
seem to go like cyclical, or does it kind of depend on the economy, or like what do you see like changes that?
Well, we used to say it was like every 13 years the market would flip. Um, it's we have a shortage of housing right now. So with a shortage of housing, I think it's been a little more difficult because we have in our area still more buyers than we do sellers. I know it's local, so if you're in a different part of the country, it might look a little differently, but um, I thought we would, with interest rates going as high as 8% at one point, I would have thought even then we would have had some sort of a shift, but I think we did not because we have not enough homes to sell. There's not enough inventory in our area. Different parts of the country are different, but
And what specific areas do you typically cover?
so I am Massachusetts and New Hampshire. So northern Massachusetts, southern New Hampshire. I like to go all the way out that Route 2 corridor, both north and south, um, about an hour. So past the Athol Orange area from Chelmsford area. I'll go down usually just north of Boston and just south of Manchester.
Hmm, great.
Now, going back to you on this one, Josh, too, as well as, I know you haven't been doing this as long, but 10 years or so, 10 plus years.
In my
You know,
team.
have you seen a change with commercial properties as far as, you know, too much, too little, more buyers, more sellers, or has it stayed kind of level compared to the way the residential markets has been?
I think there's like ebbs and flows. Sometimes it's a little bit more on the sales side versus on the leasing side, so it can tilt in different directions that way. Sometimes when you look at the sub-asset classes of commercial, so you have like office, retail, industrial, land, you may have times where there's so much office that's available, or you may have times when there's really not much flex or warehouse industrial space. Um, and other times interest rates can drive things. If the interest rates are lower, then maybe that opens it up to have more people looking at purchasing if the affordability is there, from the analytical side. So I can't say, like, a very specific kind of cyclical pattern, at least over the last 10 years, but um, it can tilt in different directions at different times.
Mhm. Now, maybe this kind of follow-up question for both of you guys. Do you see anything that happens in one market that might affect the other one? Like something that happens, when there's so many, homes available or lack of homes available in residential, would that affect commercial or vice versa? Maybe I'm thinking post-COVID when, everyone started working at home and office, didn't need office. Did that affect the residential market or, so kind of a question like that to either of you to talk
Well, I
about.
think, yeah, I was just going to say, I think on the commercial side, you think about businesses making an investment in a certain area. A lot of times they want to see if they want to see growth in an area, right? If they see a lot of, people moving into a certain town or city, maybe that looks like it's more advantageous to open up shop there, depending on their services, what they can offer. But I think there's definitely a connection between the residential and commercial. But I'm curious to hear, Ali, what your thoughts are.
Well, I mean, if you talk about COVID, post-COVID, we have seen a dramatic increase of people needing home offices still. So it's still an option when we're out buying that almost always we're looking for a place for somebody to work. We're not looking for the schoolrooms as often, but I think homeschooling is more common even now since that time frame than it had been. Not obviously not quite as common. I had people moving because they needed a place for schoolrooms during COVID, but homeschooling and absolutely looking for office space in their home
Yeah, that makes sense.
and dual offices like that. We we've always had somebody who it wasn't as common before of like needing office space, but it wasn't unheard of. Looking for both people having spaces to work from home is also much more common now.
And then we've
And I
heard over the years of, sometimes people have the home office, but then they just don't want to be at the home office anymore. They're like, I just need a separate place, even if it's small. I just want to get out of the house.
Yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think I'm lucky enough that we had an extra bedroom that I was able to turn into my home office. When my wife was home, her home office became a desk in our bedroom or the dining room or the kitchen or the so we didn't have technically two home offices, which, I think she would have preferred to have just a separate space where she could just leave everything and have
yeah.
that. So,
My husband and I share office space, and he's got a true. So do I. We both have true offices as well. Um, but we also need a place if we need to set up, do a call, do a Zoom, do a podcast, whatever, right?
mhm.
So it's not fun when we're both in the same space at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. Um, let's see. Is there anything that you can think of, that you go through as a residential broker that might surprise a commercial broker that's never done residential before?
Um, I go through like is part of my process, you mean?
Yeah, or like maybe just the deal itself, I know there's a lot more laws protecting buyers or sellers, that consumer on in residential deals than there are in commercial, where it's commercial is almost like a buyer beware. It's a business deal. You can handle it
We call
yourself.
commercial the Wild West.
There you go. Yeah.
Like anything goes in commercial. Um, what I do with my buyers and sellers both is I sit down with them for it's usually about an hour, kind of a presentation before we begin, and explain to him all the changes that have happened in the last few years in real estate, make sure that they understand everything. I think this is part of the process that, you know, helps them to know what's going to happen next for all the steps, helps them to take all of the clickbait that they have gotten off the internet and make sense of it, um, kind of figure out what their why is, what their motivation is, so that I know why they're moving. Because understanding again that emotional piece of whatever it is that's causing the move can help me to help them find the right place. And really spending that hour takes a lot of future time and agony away from the experience and makes it much more seamless. So I don't know if you guys do anything like that, but
Yeah,
You
Josh.
want to,
I was gonna put it over to you, Josh. You've had more experience than I had.
well, I think we try and cater it to the specific situation. Sometimes we have very sophisticated investors and they don't need to have, you know, lots of explanations. And then sometimes we have a first time buyer or someone looking to lease property and they need a lot more handholding. So it really depends on the situation.
Yeah. And most of the time, I would say, we're not, periodically, you get people who do this on a more regular basis. But even if the average time that a person is staying in their home has increased to about 9 years now, 9 to 11 years. And so if they are buying every 9 to 11 years, they're they've missed what's been going on for the last five, and there's been a lot of changes in the last five. Um, but we kind of get them back up to speed, even if it's not their first time. It was so long ago that they probably don't remember every step of the process. So yeah, so we do that. I do that on just about every sale.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and back to your point, Josh, too, about depending on who the person is and what they're buying it for or leasing it. I think sometimes I need to take a step back because there's times where I've had people that, know the product, they know everything, and and other times where they're like, wait, what happens now, or what's an LOI, or what's going to happen after we get our offer accepted, and I think it'd be, good for me to at least go through that process with them ahead of time instead of during, the process when things are happening. Um, so I think that's great advice for anyone working in real estate.
It's, yeah, just good to set expectations, I think, both on the commercial and residential side. I don't have a psychology degree like both of you, but I do have many years ago, I worked in residential um, on the rental side and on the sales side. So I think setting expectations is important.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's find out any interesting stories, Ali, that you've had over the years, whether it's, you know, I don't know anything. Great stories, horror stories, anything you've walked into. Maybe you've walked into a house and it looked like a haunted house even though it wasn't Halloween, um, or things that just worked out perfectly, or amazing buyers or sellers, whatever comes to mind.
Oh gosh, there's so many. I mean, during the Great Recession, we had 25% of our inventory at the time was short sales or foreclosures. And so you would go into these properties to show them, and they were having trouble with squatters or people stealing all the copper pipes, those kind of
Mhm.
things. And so I got into the habit of knocking, even if they're vacant, knocking loud, to give the people who may be inside squatting or stealing things time to get out the back door before we went in.
Mhm.
Because there were properties that we would go in and you could hear, the scurrying as they were running out the door. So that was a little scary. But I think one of my favorite stories is a client of mine who bought his first house, and, a heartwarming story, because I build relationships. My whole thing is I want to have a relationship with these people that lasts. Um, beyond our transaction. It's not just a transaction to them, and I don't want it to be a transaction just for me either, right? It's something I want to stay in touch with them. And he purchased his house, and then called me to see if I would come over and tape him proposing to his fiance, well, his girlfriend at the time, proposing to her at the front step of the house. So that, I build these strong relationships, and then I just get invited into these magical moments where he was proposing to her before they moved in on the step of their house. Or they'll send me videotapes of carrying their wife across the threshold, or I've even gotten pictures in the delivery room of when their baby was born. Just like magical moments that I get invited into, and it's just special. It's really special.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so great to be included and be a part of that, because I mean you had such a big part in helping them get into their home or dream home, or to be able to start their life as a couple, or to bring a new baby in, or just these great life moments that are so important. Um,
Yeah.
that's awesome. That's really nice.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. It's great.
Yeah, definitely. Um, I was wondering, there's so many more, or at least I think there's so many more residential real estate agents, at least in this area. I don't know if it's, across the country as well, than commercial agents. It seems like a really competitive market, whether you're trying to get new listings or, new buyers or things like that? What have you done over the years to kind of help yourself stand out and be successful in this?
Oh, well, so I really think that you need to be the professional in the transaction, right? So you need to know what you're talking about, and you do that through continued lifelong learning. So I've taken probably just about every class there is. I try to take the ones that are based on caring for your clients. So I subscribe to the Buffini way. Brian Buffini is one of my mentors. Happy to be a white hat. And, his is all about building relationships, um, understanding your client's needs, being a very good listener, obviously education, and then walking through the moments and just doing the best you can, staying in touch with them before, after, during the transaction. A lot of agents, you hear horror stories about, they're not calling me, they won't call me back, they're not available to show property. So I just really try to be authentic, do my best, and treat them the way I'd want to be treated, the way I'd want my mother treated if she was being, buying or selling real estate, and being top of the game, knowing what I'm talking about, staying on top of trends, understanding the market, and being able to give really good advice. For me, I want closings. Obviously, that's how I make money, but it is not the end of my day if we don't close on any specific property. I have enough transactions that if you decide that this house isn't for you, I'm okay with that. At the end of the day, I want you to be happy where you are, so that every time you close your front door, you're thrilled to be there and you're not having thoughts that you feel pressured into buying anything. I never high pressure with my clients. I save that for the negotiations. And it's really about making sure it's a good fit and they're comfortable with the process and the property. And through understanding the home inspection, understanding what the house is, they all need something. They are all going to need maintenance for the rest of the time that you're living there. But to be able to understand what that looks like, what that means, and the financial burden that that's going to bring to you, I think once they're comfortable with all of that, then they feel good about the purchase. And then I stay in touch with them after the sale. It's not a funeral. So I call them, make sure they're still happy. If something has happened that they need help finding, a referral for another contractor or plumber, electrician, whatever it is, I'd love to help them solve problems even after that. That's a big part of my job is solving problems, right? Coming up with solutions. Um, and so really just helping them through that process where at the end of the day, they're happy with what I have provided them, and staying top of mind, right? So that way when they hear me calling, leaving a message, they call me back or reply to my text message. Or a lot of times they'll answer the phone because they're excited to hear from me, even when we're not in the middle of a transaction. So yeah,
Yeah.
staying in touch and meeting their needs. It's all about them.
Yep, that's awesome. No, that's great. Great advice. I think we're gonna wrap up here, but I didn't know if there was any other questions you had, Josh, or anything else you wanted to talk about, Ali.
No,
Okay.
I'm
Well, this,
great. Thanks for having me. This was great.
yeah, definitely. And if anyone wants to contact you, what's the best way that they can reach you at?
So my cell phone is 978-869-9321. You can reach me by call or text, or you can email me at Ali Ludwig, ALILUDWIG at kw.com.
Awesome. Well, that's great. Well, we appreciate you being here. And if anyone wants to reach Josh or myself about this podcast, any questions you have, any topics you want us to discuss in a future episode, the best way to reach us is podcast at jmj-cre.com. Any closing words from you, Josh?
Uh, this, this was great. Thank you, Ali, for your time and your expertise sharing with us today, and really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, thank both of you. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you in a future episode. Everyone have a great day. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on the JMJ Commercial Realty podcast are those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policies or positions of JMJ Commercial Realty or its affiliates. The information provided in this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered financial, legal, or real estate advice. Listeners are encouraged to consult with qualified professionals regarding their specific real estate or business needs. JMJ Commercial Realty makes no representations or warranties as to the accuracy, completeness, or suitability of any information discussed. Reliance on any information provided in this podcast is done solely at your own risk. By listening, you agree that JMJ Commercial Realty and its representatives shall not be held liable for any losses or damages resulting from the use of information shared.